agents take down a major sex trafficking operation in South Los Angeles.
11 suspected gang members and associates are charged in a federal indictment. Eyewitness News Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan is live in Riverside, where one of the suspects was arrested this morning. Rob?
Right, well, most of the suspects were indeed from LA County, but one of them lived here in the Orange Crest neighborhood in Riverside. Around 5 o'clock this morning, neighbors awakened by 2 loud flashbangs and more than a dozen federal agents swarming the home of that suspect.
This isn't just an update. This is a deeper dive into one of the most chilling and far-reaching federal RICO indictments to surface from South Los Angeles in recent memory, centered on the Hoover criminal gang. Key figures like Lady Duck and the shadowy entity known as P4K. But this is more than just legal documents. It's about community reaction, voices from within, like the Back on Fig podcast's co-host Smack, and the brutal reality behind the headlines. Let's break it all down. On August 13th, 2025, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Central District of California rolled out a sweeping 31-count federal indictment. The charges span racketeering conspiracy, human sex trafficking, including minors via force and coercion, drug trafficking, money laundering, firearms violations, and more. At the heart of it, Amaya Armstead, 25, alias Lady Duck, identified as a leadership figure in the Hoover 112 set.
Prosecutors say this gang was notorious. Not only did they lure these victims, they also branded them, brands that you use on cattle on their body to identify them with their pimps, according to prosecutors. We are told all those people arrested did get arraigned today. We're still waiting to hear back what their plea was. We know also there's still one person that they're looking for.
The indictment accuses her of trafficking a 14-year-old girl. Other defendants include Youngji Polk, N4, Hands, J Money, Vermont Star, Popcorn, Chop'em, Tiny 3, Tommy Guns, and P4K. A 10th defendant, 4Lock, remains at large. Federal documents allege this group controlled trafficking along the infamous Figueroa corridor from February 2021 through August 2025. Investigators say they used social media to recruit victims, marked them with tattoos, rented motel rooms, arranged sex ads, and disguised payments through Cash App and Apple Pay. If convicted, some face a minimum of 15 years. Others face potential life behind bars, making this one of the most serious federal actions ever taken at the intersection of gang and trafficking operations.
Is a woman, she goes by Lady Duck, and she was out there recruiting these young women, children as young as 14 years old.
According to the indictment, at one point, a 14-year-old girl was trafficked for at least 3 days in a row at a South LA motel.
Now, let's talk about P4K. Not to be confused with the Philadelphia rapper on Apple Music. This P4K referenced in the indictment is shadowy and street level, almost unknown until now. Yet, the inclusion of this name alongside prominent Hoover members signals significant weight. Limited to social media, mentions, and murky rap affiliations, the only public discourse on P4K comes from fans who contextualize him in street lore. Text on screen, fan comments from social media. P4K wasn't really relevant. He just known because he died, honestly. His name was Jump Out Squeeze, but they also called him P4K.
The allegations in the indictment are horrendous. We're talking about women and children as young as 14 years old being pimped out for sex in these motels, and they were kidnapping them, they were drugging them, they were beating them, they were raping them.
This suggests P4K may be a moniker tied to violence, perhaps a fallen or incarcerated member tied deeply to the set. Not a public performer, but a piece in this violent enterprise. His involvement in the RICO indictment places him not on the fringes, but deeply embedded in this trafficking structure, further amplifying the complexity of the Hoover network. Amaya Armstead, also known as Lady Duck, has been identified as one of the primary figures leading the Hoover 112 set in the sex trafficking operation. Allegations against her involve recruiting and coercing victims, including a 14-year-old girl, into the sex trade. Her involvement is not just an accusation. It's a chilling look at how gangs exploit vulnerable members of the community. Lady Duck's influence within the Hoover 112 set is deep-rooted, and the indictment shows how she allegedly used her position to control trafficking operations.
Top story out of South LA today, and that's where federal agents say they have dismantled a sex trafficking ring. Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Colleen Williams.
And I'm Michael Brownlee. Prosecutors say the ring was operating along the Figueroa corridor, which is notorious for prostitution. NBC4 has been following the fight to end the problems there since 2023. NBC4's McCullough Medina just spoke with the feds and a mother who says her daughter was one of the victims.
One of the most disturbing aspects of the indictment is how this trafficking operation was conducted with the aid of social media platforms. Investigators revealed how the gang allegedly used social media to recruit victims, especially those who were already vulnerable. Runaways, foster children, and those with no support systems. Victims were reportedly coerced into compliance, branded with tattoos, and trafficked up and down the Figueroa corridor. Motel rooms were rented out. Ads were placed on illicit sites. And payments were cleverly disguised through apps like Cash App and Apple Pay.
Prosecutors say the gang used social media and music videos as recruitment tools.
The alleged victims include women and teenage girls as young as 14. Rick Chambers live in Westwood with more on this disturbing case. Rick?
Yeah, Micah, this case has been in the works for about a year now. It involved both federal and local police officers, and it's being called the first major takedown within the notorious Figueroa corridor. It's a 3.5-mile stretch of Figueroa from Slauson to Century, the corridor, as it's called.
Meanwhile, on the Back on Fig podcast, the underground mouthpiece for South Central's reality, Smack, a host and Hoover Street native, responded in raw, unfiltered terms. Smack, who is known for his support of Schoolboy Q, spoke candidly about the indictment and what it meant for the community. Smack's words are powerful because they aren't just about criminal activity. They're a cry for accountability within the community. He speaks from the pain of betrayal, something that echoes through the very streets that raised him. To fully grasp the magnitude of this case, we need to understand why the federal RICO strategy is so monumental here.
Now, 5 of those suspects pleaded not guilty today, and the trial has now been set for early October. And if convicted as charged, some could be facing life in prison. Reporting live from Westwood, I'm Chelsea Edwards, Fox 11 News.
Chelsea, I'm looking at those photos there, thinking of the industry of sex trafficking, and these suspects all seem fairly young.
The Racketeer, Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, allows prosecutors to dismantle entire criminal networks, not just tackle individual crimes. In this case, they're targeting drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and financial crimes as part of a coordinated, orchestrated enterprise. This isn't the first time federal authorities have used RICO against the Hoovers. In fact, back between 2019 and 2022, the Metro Safe Streets Task Force seized 44 firearms, explosives, and controlled substances. The investigation led to 38 indictments and convictions, including those of gang members like Big Fly and Low Down, who were sentenced to life without parole in October 2023.
Figueroa is a scary place, and there's so many unsolved and so many don't know. And my daughter falls into that category of being sex trafficked and don't know.
But this new indictment goes further. It marks the first time the feds have exposed sex trafficking of minors as part of a gang-run enterprise, something that hits at the core of the community's most vulnerable. Federal prosecutors now describe the Hoover gang's activities as a vicious gang-run sex trafficking operation. This is a chilling and unprecedented step. The first federal case of its kind, where minors have been trafficked as part of a broader gang enterprise in Los Angeles. In this operation, young women were allegedly coerced into trafficking, branded, and exploited for profit.
Well, Michael, that woman is, or that daughter rather, is Ruthie Smith. We're not quite sure if she is one of the victims. We do know she was 19 years old when her mom says she was actually lured onto that corridor, sex trafficked, and then kidnapped. The agents we talked to today say these arrests from over the last few hours is just the beginning.
It's like a first major step in combating sex trafficking along the Figueroa corridor.
The disturbing part, this went on for years, undetected until now, targeting young victims, many of whom were runaways or foster children. This indictment raises a number of uncomfortable but necessary questions. How did this trafficking network go undetected for so long? How did it exploit the most vulnerable in society without the authorities intervening earlier? And perhaps most importantly, what role did P4K play in this operation? Was he just a figurehead, or was he directly involved in orchestrating the trafficking operations? Smack's commentary on the Back on Fig podcast forces us to confront the deep fracture in trust that this indictment exposes.
Yeah, well, this was a big bust. We're talking 11 alleged gang members, including 6 leaders of the Hoover criminal street gang, now indicted on these really disturbing charges. Take a look at some video. These are images that were mentioned in the indictment, things that they posted to social media. Prosecutors say the gang recruited girls as young as 14 years old, many of them runaways or kids from the foster care system. Federal officials say those victims were regularly raped and drugged, all while being forced into prostitution.
Now, the big question is, what happens next? How does the community rebuild after such a betrayal? How do they rebuild trust after members of their own hood have turned against them in such a violent way? The victims, the young women who were trafficked, are left to heal, but their scars will remain.
I mean, these guys were prolific. They were the ones recruiting these young women and children. They're ones out there selling them. They were out there enforcing by beating up these women and drugging them and raping them. And so today we're getting the worst of the worst people off the street, and there should be an impact on the community very quickly.
Their experiences serve as a painful reminder of the predatory nature of gang-run trafficking networks. And the community must decide, will they rebuild? Or will this betrayal fracture them even further? So, what do you think? Is this federal indictment a turning point for justice in South LA? Will it dismantle the Hoover gang's influence? Or will it fracture the community even more?
Hurt people, because I see the girls, I know the stories of the men that have taken them. And it's all a failed system. It's all going to go back to the broken system, because a lot of the kids that you see on the street that were gang members were in the system themselves. Whether they were in juvenile hall, group homes, or foster homes, they were in that broken system, and they came out unhealed, unhelped.
For fans of Back on Fig, did Smack's on-the-ground commentary change how you process this case? At the end of the day, this case is not just about law enforcement. It's about families, lost youth, and a culture grappling with betrayal from within its own ranks. Drop your thoughts below. If you found this breakdown essential, hit subscribe, stay listening, and stay watching, because here, awareness isn't passive, it's survival.